Good morning and welcome to Ask the Expert. I'm Joe Taylor. This morning, another in the ongoing series of programs presented by the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning. The program, through the Northwest Institute of Research, oversees a grant from the Office of Child Development and Early Learning at the Pennsylvania Department of Public Welfare and the Department of Education. The goal of the program is to improve the outcomes for young children as they prepare for school. John Posa is a community partner specialist in the program, and he's here with us throughout the series. John, welcome in, and I guess you have a guest this morning from Philadelphia, right?
Well, yes, thanks, Joe. We're welcoming today Tara Dechert. She is the Business Development Manager for the Nurse Family Partnership, and she's in the Philadelphia area, so I wanted to welcome Tara today. How are you, Tara?
Good morning. Thanks, John. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to be on the program. I know the program that you're involved in is extremely valuable, and certainly it's a program that we want a lot of folks to know more about. So I guess just to get started, can you share with us what Nurse Family Partnership is all about?
Absolutely, I'd love to, and thanks again so much for having me this morning. And it's just an honor to be able to be with you and to talk about Nurse Family Partnership. And you'll see that I hope my passion for these services comes through in my communication about what we are. So happy to do so. Nurse Family Partnership, or otherwise known as NFP, in our world it's a proven public health program with over 35 years of evidence to demonstrate its effectiveness in changing the life course of a pregnant mother and her first child. Across the country, we currently serve about 30,000 families in 43 states. And in Pennsylvania, we have the capacity to serve about 4,300 families in 44 of the Commonwealth's 67 counties. So our mothers that we serve, they form a relationship with a registered nurse early in her pregnancy. The earlier the better, but no later than 28 weeks of gestation. And they receive ongoing care in their home, and that continues until their child's second birthday. NFP is a client-centered, a strength-based approach. It's a voluntary program for mothers who meet a community's definition of low income. So for many NFP agencies, for example, that's families who are eligible for Medicaid or for WIC. And our nurses, they work with and they truly get to know the mothers in their environment, in their family environment. The nurse encourages them to take advantage of their strengths in order to achieve their goals that they've set for themselves. I realized I mentioned a client-centered model, and not folks don't always know what that means. And so what we mean by client-centered is that the nurses, they're constantly adapting the care that they're providing to their moms, to their families, to ensure that the visits that they're doing and the materials they're providing to her and the family are relevant, and that they feel valued by the family. So, supporting the client, the mom's growth, and the needs that they identify is our focus. And so while the model and the extensive training that the nurses receive, it provides guidelines for how to provide that care, the nurse is really able to adapt the program to meet the needs and the desires of the family. And so, we know NFP is based on a solid adult learning and behavior change, and we know we're all examples of this, that adults and adolescents make changes in their life most successfully when they're building on their own knowledge and their own strengths and successes. So, as I mentioned, the nurses, they stay with the families until their child is age 2. It's nearly a 2.5-year commitment that these moms and these families make. And while it's, intensive, the support has been proven to improve outcomes related to a woman's pregnancy health, the health and the development of her child, and the family's long-term economic self-sufficiency.
You visit women in their homes. Why is that important? What can you learn that might affect the child by visiting the woman's home?
Sure, absolutely. So, I think first of all, the home is an environment where the client feels comfortable to be able to have a one-on-one conversation with a nurse about questions, especially early in pregnancy, that a first-time mom in particular might have, that she wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable asking in an office setting, for example, in a pediatric office. I think the other thing that providing services in the home allows is it allows the nurse to really assess the environment in which the family, the mom, is living, and to make an assessment about what some of those needs are, identify some of those needs that the families are in need of in terms of their physical and their environmental health.
Well, I know that there are three primary goals of nurse-family partnership, and can you tell me more about them?
Absolutely, I'd love to. So there are three primary goals. We want to improve pregnancy outcomes, improve child's health and development, and improve the economic self-sufficiency of families. And so we achieve those goals by helping women to engage in good preventative health practices, including obtaining thorough prenatal care from their health care providers, improving their diet, reducing substance abuse or cigarette use that's harmful to the unborn child and their health. And then in terms of, child health and development, in essence, we just want to help parents provide responsible and confident caregiving for their children. Nurses provide individual care to those moms that's specific to the child's development and milestones, and encourage the parents to use redirection and praise and nonviolent techniques. And finally, the nurses really encourage the family to, in terms of economic self-sufficiency or self-sufficiency, the nurses encourage the families to develop a vision for their future now that this child's in their lives, whether that's staying in school, going back to school, finding employment, and planning for future pregnancies.
I would assume that many of these women are unmarried or single moms. If there is a father in the home or available, do you work with him? And what about the other people in the mother's life who will be there 2 years down the road when you folks will be gone? Do you work with them at all to reinforce the mothering skills, the family skills that you teach the mom?
Sure. I'll answer your first question first. Yeah, the basic demographic of our moms, our average age is 19, and over 90% of them are unmarried. So clearly in a position to benefit from the increase in support. And yes, absolutely, fathers are involved in the process. The model has a consistent strategy that we attempt to engage the fathers or the mother's current partners during home visits. And we know that this support really is having them involved is really to support the mom and to support and improve the child's health and development by including them in the process. So specifically, how we engage those fathers or those partners is, we ask those partners and those fathers to support our goals, to help the mother make health-related and behavior changes, that support the pregnancy's success. The partner can really play an integral role in that success. And after the birth, the fathers are encouraged to take a direct role in helping around the house and caring for the child, and really just supporting the mom in the overall care. And then finally, just encouraging the father. We know that increasing the opportunity for them to participate helps us to work with the families to practice problem solving, during these visits, which can reduce stress and, when situations occur after the nurse is not there, resolving that tension in a stressful environment, can really create a loving and a safe environment for the child, which is, ultimately the nurse's goal.
Well, Terry, the statistics or the impact that nurse-family partnership has crosses the spectrum in terms of its effect. We know that, and of course, it's one of the many quality early education programs in Pennsylvania, and that's why it's of particular interest to us in this program. Now, can you tell us what does NFP have to do with, and how is it involved in actually preparing children for school and later life success?
Sure. So we know that children who are exposed to substances during pregnancy or maltreated or cared for poorly in life have difficulty with learning, memory, and early language development. So it's no surprise to us when we learn that when we learn that these children quickly fall behind in school functioning. But we know that healthy pregnancies and quality early care beginning at the earliest age can actually make a difference. So, we know that mothers having difficulty caring well for their children, if they suffer from symptoms of, say, depression or limited intellectual functioning, or just really have a lesser or diminished belief in their ability to manage their own lives, that carries on to how they perceive that they're going to care for their children. So that compounded with the thought that they're also surrounded by significant social disadvantage, it can be difficult to think about even preparing the child for school. But we know from our research trials, as well as data that we have from program implementation, that when the nurses at the children of nurse-visited families, nurse-family partnership, they have better cognitive function, which means that the children have a better ability to become aware or perceive or comprehend the thoughts and ideas. NFP visited children have higher language development and better behavioral control, which means that there's going to be fewer behavioral problems, making them better prepared for entering school and being successful in the classroom. But beyond the academic test scores, and we know from the research that nurse-family partnership has the ability to increase language development and reading and test scores. Our nurses really they help develop healthier communities and greater lifelong success, because they become the facilitator or the case manager for a woman's care, and they connect that woman and that family with the available resources that she needs in order to be successful. And those community resources that also help children prepare for school are a key element in ensuring our program's success with families. So, nurse-family partnership, while successful, is also as successful as the community resources that are available.
There's no question about that. You're a partner with obviously the STARS program and with so many of the other programs with the Office of Child Development and Early Learning. One of the things I wanted to mention is that while it's been 35 years and you started in 3 counties in Pennsylvania, Berks, Erie, and Luzerne, Erie, of course, which is part of our Northwest region, now growing to having 44 of Pennsylvania's 67 counties participating. And as I look at the map, the predominantly you have most of all the counties in eastern Pennsylvania, most in the central. There's still some counties we have in our Northwest region: Lawrence, Jefferson, Clearfield, Cambria, Blair, Center, Clinton. But there's still some other counties, especially in the northern tier area, that I'm sure that you would like to have on board. Can you talk a little bit about some of the work that you particularly are involved in as you go out and try to develop more partnerships in some of these other counties?
Absolutely. If I can just, I'm glad that you had mentioned, first thanks, John, you had mentioned a little bit about our history and 35 years of research. And so, yes, Nurse-Family Partnership was developed over 35 years ago. We've been through 3 randomized control trials to demonstrate our effectiveness. And just some of those consistent results across those trials that we found are, women have improvement in their prenatal health, their birth outcomes, and, as well as reductions in maternal and child death, child abuse and neglect, childhood injuries. And we have a whole list of outcomes. And so we use that information to educate communities about what Nurse-Family Partnership is and how we can support some of those areas of need in their communities. So, yes, we've started with 3 counties, have grown now to serve 44 of the Commonwealth's 67 counties. For those that are not currently implementing Nurse-Family Partnership, it's really my role to support communities in their development of community needs assessment to figure out if Nurse-Family Partnership is a good fit for them. There has been tremendous interest in the currently unserved communities in Pennsylvania to bring nurse-family partnership. It has been, while there's been significant support from the state, from the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, as you mentioned, they're a great partner. I think they would also attest to a recent statewide assessment showed that there's still significant need for not just nurse-family partnership, but for evidence-based home visiting services across the Commonwealth.
Can we clarify, in terms of our counties, Clearfield, Jefferson, and Elk, does NFP have a presence in our area? And if it does, tell us about that. If it doesn't, what is the process for trying to get our areas involved? Sure.
So we are in your area. We are served by a home nursing agency. And so in terms, and then there are some communities in the northern tier that do not have nurse-family partnership. And the process for becoming a nurse-family partnership site is contacting myself or contacting the National Service Office, the Nurse-Family Partnership National Service Office, which you can go on our website at nursefamilypartnership.org. And we will work with you as a community to go through that assessment process to identify if nurse-family partnership is a good fit for you, to help identify an organization that could implement our services, to help find funding for those services and support the sustainability of those services. And so it's, so I think, I guess I would answer that question by saying to contact the Nurse Family Partnership National Service Office with support in getting those services to your community.
Now, what about assuming that there is service available, NFP service available, a mother who qualifies? How would she learn about the program? Is it voluntary? Is she referred by a social worker, another interested party? What is her process for getting, or the community's process, we'll say, for getting her in the program?
Sure. So typically our referral sources, because we serve prenatally, many of our referrals for our mothers come from their healthcare providers. So from if they're getting prenatal care, we will receive referrals from their obstetrician, or we also get referrals from WIC, school nurses. We also receive self-referrals, and we love self-referrals. Women who are interested in receiving visits from a nurse can go on our website, again, nursefamilypartnership.org, and can identify, can go on, we have a map. You can click on where you live, and that will show you the contact information to self-refer. Joe, you mentioned it is voluntary, and it is actually free. Our services do not cost anything to our moms.
Now, of course, everyone wants to know, listeners are always interested in bottom line results, and of course, knowing how this program, and as well as others that we've talked about on this series, why it's a good investment for communities. So could you address that in terms of how the community benefits?
Absolutely. So I think it's kind of twofold. I'll start by saying communities benefit when vulnerable or mothers in general are guided in developing strong families, or even families are guided. When they feel empowered and confident, they become knowledgeable and are able to prepare their children for successful futures. I think that our evidence is clear. Nurse-family partnership model delivers multi-generational outcomes that benefit communities, that eliminate costs associated with adverse health problems and social issues. I neglected to say before that our nurses, in addition to our 35 years of clinical trial research, our nurses on a regular basis enter data or information about our families into a national web-based data collection system that we use. And so in addition to the extensive clinical trials as well as the program implementation data, we've been able to use that data to have party independent cost benefit studies done, which actually have confirmed that nurse-family partnerships save scarce public resources. And there's been multiple cost benefit analysis, and I'll just mention one briefly. One of most recent, it was conducted by the Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation. It's been the most comprehensive study conducted to date on NFP's costs and return on investment, and it actually drills down the cost to the state level. And so the report demonstrated that NFP serving a family in Pennsylvania saves state, local, and federal government funding. It predicts that the cost savings per family is over $20,000, with which represents a $7.20 return on that investment for every dollar invested in Pennsylvania. So, as a former state employee who was responsible for administering grants, I believe that communities that choose to invest in NFP are investing in sound public health model and policy that shows significant cost benefit and continued positive outcomes in their communities.
I have a question about the end of the program. After the 2 years, and the NFP people stop visiting the mother in her home, is there any follow-up, or does she have the ability to contact with you for questions or guidance? What happens then?
Sure, that's a great question. Thanks so much, Joe. While the formal visit process ends, I will say that our nurses often hear from our families for years and years to come, and it's really just incredibly valuable to hear some of those stories and to hear the success that some of our families are having. Upon graduation, when the child is nearing age 2, by then the nurse has identified and worked with the family to really assess whether they need additional support and additional resources. And so that's where I really see our nurses as experts in their communities, and they identify, what are some of those other resources that this family could benefit from and connect them. So, for example, I mentioned other evidence-based home visiting models. We have many communities that implement other home visiting models that create a continuum of care. So when Nurse-Family Partnership is graduating, we have the ability to introduce them to other services that kind of fill that gap between age 2 when they're graduating from Nurse-Family Partnership until they're ready to enter school. And so, programs such as Parents of Teachers or Early Head Start and Healthy Families America, there are other models that we're able to refer to, and there's others too in the communities. Probably in your area, there's Project Elect, and there's a tremendous amount of resources that we can refer to ensure that family is continuing to get the care that they need upon graduation from Nurse-Family Partnership.
Well, thank you so much, Tara. You know that, as always, our half hour goes so quickly on
Absolutely.
Our program, and but the information that you shared is so valuable. I want to really thank you so much for participating on the program. We just enjoyed having you as a guest and promise to come back.
Great. Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Tara.
It's been a pleasure being with you guys.
And that's our program for today. We'll be back in 2 weeks at this same time. In the meantime, you can go online to learn more at papromiseforchildren.com. If you have questions, please email them to questions@nwirkey.org. For John Posa and the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning, I'm Joe Taylor. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.